Welcome and thank you for joining. I am Sarah, the Director of Mariner Boating Holidays. I've been strongly encouraged to reach out to you, so here I am. I'm not planning for this to be a sales presentation. It's more about helping you understand your options when it comes to sailing trips and mariner boating holidays. The presentation seems to be going for about 35 minutes, but I keep being told to slow down. And so I'll stick around for questions at the end, but I'm looking at something close to an hour. As a little note on housekeeping, there's no need to show you where the toilets or exits are, but please can you mute yourself so that additional noise doesn't become too distracting. If you have questions along the way, please pop them into the chat, and at the end I'll answer them and more if you have them. Now, my newest trick recently learned for Zoom is to just hold down the space bar on your computer and you'll come off mute until you release it again. It's a game changer compared to trying to find the unmute button. I'll start with bareboat chartering and move on to small group sailing holidays, and our destination for today is Greece. Bareboat chartering, the DIY of sailing holidays, is hiring a yacht that allows you to sail independently, much like renting a car and going on a self-drive holiday. Our small group guided sailing holidays are designed to take a lot of the responsibility off you. We sail together in a group of 3 to 6 yachts, and I'll go into more detail about that later. My first point is that you can absolutely do this yourself. And before we go any further, I want to give you something useful straight away. ChatGPT and I put together a short ebook that walks through how to organize your own bareboat charter based on my experience, the key decisions, common mistakes, and what to think about before you book. This webinar has some of that thinking included, and the ebook goes into more detail. So I'm just going to drop that into the chat for you now. You can download it, save it for later, come back to me with questions if you have them. Now, most people come to sailing for very good reasons. Time on the water, shared meals, swimming, movement, and connection. Arrive on the quay, get your bags into a cabin, unpack, and leave it at that. You no longer have to drag the suitcase through cobbled stoned alleys. You can take your cabin with you from spot to spot and go exploring. That part of the dream is absolutely real. What's less visible in the layer is the layer underneath, the decisions and responsibility that make that experience possible. So if you've opened 17 tabs today already and have a spreadsheet ready on a second screen, DIY sailing might well be for you. Sorry about that. In Greece, you're choosing from about 300 charter companies, and they don't all run the same standards, maintenance, programs, or honesty levels. On the surface, this looks like choice. In practice, it can mean very different standards, structures, and ways of operating. And those differences aren't always obvious online. Our business, Mariner Boating Holidays, began many years ago before the internet could put every option, review, and opinion at your fingertips. In those days, confidence came from personal connections. My dad's relationships in the destination countries, his knowledge of which suppliers could be trusted, and his understanding of how things actually ran on the ground. Today, information is everywhere. That has opened wonderful opportunities to organize your own trips independently but it also makes it easier to underestimate just how much responsibility sits with the organizer. Some operators are excellent and some are stretched. Some are operating very large fleets with tight turnaround schedules. Others are smaller and more directly involved in the condition of their yachts. From the outside, those differences can be hard to spot. But what sits behind a booking often matters more than how polished a website looks. Towards the end of 2025, I was approached by one person from a group of 4 planning to charter together, 2 couples traveling. They'd already found an option online and just wanted a second opinion before booking. And on the surface, it looked good. Polished website. The skipper owned his own yacht. Reviews described him as friendly and enjoyable to sail with. I priced a comparable option through an established operator for this inquiry. My quote came in higher. The yacht I suggested was newer, but more importantly, there was structure behind it. And my advice wasn't to not do it. It was simply be very clear with the skipper about what happens if something goes wrong. If the yacht becomes unavailable, what happens to your charter? If there's a technical issue mid-charter, does the skipper have an established support team? If a dispute arises, are you left arguing with a skipper a few days? Are you left arguing with a skipper? A few days later, they chose to book through the established supplier, not because it was picture perfect, but because they understood that what was backing the experience. And that's a difference people don't often see when they're comparing options online. Even at average occupancy, a yacht may turn around week after week for the summer season. In Greece, it's about 6 months. That's a lot of use and not much breathing room for preventative maintenance. A privately owned 2022 built yacht is much, much newer than a charter yacht of the same age. I wouldn't accept a yacht older than 2022 or 3 for any of our trips unless the supplier was one of 2 Turkish family-owned businesses or the guest was very clear that they were comfortable with the age of the yacht. Most people start planning their trip, scrolling social media and seeing picture perfect spots and bucket list locations. The inspiration is brilliant and the complexity quietly builds from there. Lots of decisions that can shape your trip. In Greece, you are choosing from around 6,000 islands. At this point, most people think, great, loads of choice. And a little later, it may well be, why are there so many choices? It's exciting and it can be overwhelming. Someone needs to choose for everyone, or everyone needs to be super flexible. The amount of scrolling can be a lot, to say the least. Crew confidence. Seasonal winds, distances, safe harbors, how to get a spot in the port. In some countries, you can book ahead, not in Greece. It's first come, best dressed predominantly. The Greek hospitality is awesome, but local knowledge is still worth its weight in gold. This is where planning can stop being fun for many people. We had a client in 2025 decide to do a bareboat charter following the itinerary they had previously done with us as a small group sailing holiday. Their main feedback was that the information just wasn't there. They hadn't fully grasped their responsibility in taking it on for themselves. When you plan a bareboat charter, you don't just book a boat, One of the most important things is to understand about bareboat chartering is where responsibility sits. When you book the charter, someone in your group is legally and practically responsible for the yacht, the crew, and the decisions made on board. My ebook goes into security deposit and insurance options, but it's more than that. You may not have officially received the title, but somehow you become head of weather, head of anchoring, head of backup plans, head of fun, and much more. The moment everyone suddenly looks at you. I want to show you about 20 seconds of what a particular day actually looks like, not because it was extreme, but because this is the kind of condition where decision making quietly matters. What if the wind comes up? What if the anchorage is full? What if something breaks? You may never say it out loud, but you are carrying it all the time. We had arrived early in this bay that provided as much protection as possible. We secured a mooring buoy, knowing conditions would worsen. As the afternoon went on, more yachts arrived and space became limited. A charter yacht tried repeatedly to pick up a buoy, but their bow was being blown off course. The crew were trying to use a precarious mix of speed to combat the wind, and in the tight spot, struck several other yachts in the process, which can be an expensive outcome. Eventually, two experienced local skippers, one of mine and one other, went across by dinghy and calmly directed the crew. Reverse onto the buoy with the swim platform down, pick up the buoy and walk it to the bow, secure it properly, let the boat swing into the wind. The solution was simple. Executing it under pressure was not. And that's the difference between knowing what to do and doing it when conditions are and stress are rising. These aren't warnings to bareboaters, just real examples of how responsibility actually shows up. For some people, that responsibility is fine. You become the organizer, the decision maker. For some people, that responsibility is part of the enjoyment. And for others, it subtly changes how the holiday feels. Neither response is wrong. Bareboat chartering isn't terrible. Lots of people do it every year. It's simply one way of traveling, and it suits some people better than others. For others, it simply takes up more space than expected. Some people love making decisions all day. Others would prefer to make free decisions, ideally involving lunch. And we have room for everyone. For those people who don't want to be charter managers, but they want to sail, swim, eat well, and feel confident about each day, we have put together another option. Our small group sailing holidays, led by at least one professional skipper and myself. For those not filling the spreadsheet I noted earlier, those who aren't wanting to plan the whole trip, this is the moment when you'll be thinking, so I don't have to be in charge of everything. This is where the same idea of sailing Greece can start to look different for those wanting to carry a little less responsibility. When I talk about sailing with us on our small group sailing holidays, I want to be very clear about what that means. We're not a cruise. I don't line you up, fly a flag, and tell you to follow me. We're not a flotilla where you're told to meet us at the next spot and have a great day. And we're not a bareboat with a bit of help on the side. We sail in small groups with professional skippers, with clear guidance, so you can relax into the experience without carrying every decision yourself. I travel with you, not as your doormat or your guide, but I hold the logistics. I ensure that my leadership meets you where it needs to. I customize the plan to give you as much as possible. I've had hikers on board and I've arrived at islands and briefed them on the walks the island has to offer. I've facilitated vehicles to get you out exploring. We meet each morning to discuss the day ahead. When a crew needed support with the Mediterranean berthing required for each port, I organised my skippers to spend a few hours teaching how it's done. When things go sideways, as they do, even in the best laid plans, I get the solutions to come into focus. No one is left behind. Over the years, we've had our fair share of chaos control. It's been said at the end of one of my trips, I had no idea what you actually did, but I do now. You're involved as much or as little as you like. If you want to learn and take part, great. If you want to sit back and swim or read, that's fine too. What we hold is the framework, itinerary logic, weather decisions, pacing the days, safety margins. The sailing feels natural, not pressured. On a bareboat charter, the load sits with you. On a big tour, the load sits somewhere else entirely, and with us, the load is shared quietly and calmly in the background. If you're a skipper, qualified, you can join me and we'll organise your own yacht for you and your friends. You retain the freedom to be master of your own yacht, but you share the logistics, responsibility, tech support, itinerary considerations, and more with myself and our local skipper. The local skipper is available to support each of the yachts on our small group sailing holiday. They travel on our share boat. The shareboat refers to those guests who aren't skippers and don't have a group of friends to travel with, but want to travel anyway. They're usually traveling as independent travelers or with a friend or partner. The shareboat is made up of 3 to 6 guests and the professional skipper. Each cabin has a private bathroom. Our yachts are smaller if you are traveling with yourself and 3 others, mid-range if traveling with 5 to 7 or 8 people, and our shareboat is between 47 and 50 foot. In reality, this means the yachts are between 40 and 50 feet in length, give or take. That's about 12 meters to 15 meters, much like a caravan if you are an Aussie caravaner, you'll know what I mean. Now, I have a video here that's just a quick visual on our yachts. What I'd like to do now is to introduce you to the Cyclades, the Saronic Gulf, and Corfu Paxos. While these names sound like something out of a NATO briefing or code names for secret missions, they are actually areas of Greece containing Mediterranean blue water, and each one is home to its own group of islands. Far better food and much lower stress levels than a NATO briefing or secret missions, and each area offers you its own personality to fall in love with. The Cyclades Islands are the quintessential postcard Greek islands, arid landscape with blue and white Chora villages on the top of the hill, with the town quay alive with tavernas, small wooden fishing boats, and our yachts. We time our trips in this area because the July and August wind can be more than we need. On our last trip, we arrived, and shortly afterwards, I sat down with my local skippers. We looked at the forecasted wind and we turned the itinerary around so we could travel with the wind for the first few days while it blew itself out. This is that trip. This is Milos. These beautiful hilltop towns. You get up in the morning and have a coffee and you walk up the hill or catch a bus, and then you walk back down and you're ready for breakfast. This is a 1 week trip in 2026. The Saronic Gulf is our planned itinerary. It's ideal for testing the waters of our trips. We sail from Athens and track along the south coast of Greece, the famous island of Hydra, the amphitheatre of Epidavros. Our 1 week trips came about because guests new to our holidays wondered if 2 weeks was too long. 1 week is definitely too short, but sometimes there is only one way to find out. Corfu and Paxos. Shorter distances, plenty of shelter, time to relax into sailing, well suited for people who want ease and confidence. The Ionian tends to be more sheltered than other sailing areas of Greece. The islands are greener than the classic Greek island. The architecture is more colourful and has an Italian influence. Corfu sits in the north of the Ionian. We will circumnavigate it. We'll visit the islands surrounding Corfu before we cross to the mainland of Greece and the islands of Paxos and Antipaxos. The mistake people can make in choosing based on photos rather than how they want their days to feel. How much decision making do you want to carry? Do you want to build confidence or test it? What makes you feel refreshed and like you've had a holiday? Some people like to train for 6 months and climb Mount Everest. Others like to sip a gin and tonic by the pool, and others want something in between. And I would suggest that we are something in between when I'm talking about our small group guided sailing holidays. DIY or small group guidance. Some of you will leave excited to plan your own bareboat charter. Others will realize you want the experience without carrying all the decisions underneath it. Mariner boating can be there for both options. And if you want even less action, we can help you book a goulette. A goulette is another thing entirely. Think traditional wooden boats refitted with all the mod cons, staffed, catered, all the creature comforts. Not so available in Greece, but becoming more available. Very prominent in Croatia and Turkey. Well, we have a whole page on our website to get dedicated to these awesome beings, so you can check those ones out if you want to also. If you're still weighing things up, bareboat, Corfu, Cyclades, or whether this kind of sailing is right for you at all, the next best step is a short planning chat. It's not a sales call, it's a chance to talk through what you want your days to feel like. And I'll tell you honestly what I think fits, even if that's not one of our trips. I'll drop the link to book one of those chats now into the chat. There you go. Now, so that's the end of my presentation. Thanks for spending time with me. I'm happy to stay on board now and answer any questions. I will check the webinar chat and then, of course, take yourself off mute and let's open up for questions as you wish.